And we're recording! Totally did not just delete everything to that point and start over.
Would I do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Jeremy. Yeah. We both know the answer to that.
Welcome to Learn to Wargame, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forums. I play Kador.
Jeremy, this is where you introduce yourself.
I don't want to. They should know who I am by now.
Probably, but you should probably tell them that you're here, because you don't make it all.
Okay, fine. Just Jeremy. Whatever. Lord Fool on the forums.
Tell them what you play.
What do I play?
I don't know.
I haven't played anything this year, so why start now?
I meant like, never mind. He plays traders. Next.
My name is Scott. I go by Scotty on the forums, and I play Kador and Trollbloods.
Cool.
Well, we're off to a riveting start.
I know, right? So today we're going to be talking about some C.I.D. models that have finally come through the C.I.D. system.
Sorry, we're podcasting during the day, and Brandon has only had one beer that I've seen.
The sun's not good for my vampire skin. Just telling you now. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about the first round of C.I.D. models that made it out of C.I.D. So we kind of get to see the difference between pre-C.I.D., during C.I.D., and then what the final product might look like going forward. So first thing I think we should talk about is the Crix models, just kind of get them out of the way. They really didn't change much from C.I.D. from what I've seen, unless somebody has a correction for me. But primarily this was in relation to the Bane Theme Force, which hasn't actually come out yet, but the changes that were playtested in C.I.D. seem to have mostly come through. Does anybody remember exactly what the Desecrator was like before it came out of C.I.D.?
I don't remember exactly what it was like, but I know the Desecrator in particular went through a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, it was constant buffing and nerfing, kind of just trying to find the right spot for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually that's kind of, in a way, that's kind of the testament to the C.I.D. process. Mm-hmm. Is because that particular model, I remember at one point in C.I.D., they were like, well, we really want to give it some kind of a Scather effect. But if we give it some kind of a Scather effect, then like Banes can't charge the target you shot. So like we can't do that. And so there was this big back and forth kind of going around like, well, what kind of a template or what kind of effect will it have on the table? And like, it was pretty cool to see them kind of take all this community feedback, and over the course of like a couple of days, they turned it into this scornergistic model that kind of wasn't really doing anything for the Crix army, and then they turned it into something that's probably playable now. The Desecrator itself, I don't think it's gonna rip open the tournament scene or anything, but I think it's definitely a fieldable warjack now. Whereas before, I can't see a reason why you would have wanted to play one.
I actually saw several used very well before the C.I.D., but
I haven't, but that's just me. Like, that's my own personal experience, though. So
I understand that might have been behind the curve before, but it still had uses. The thing that really bothers me is the argument that it was a big, like the term Scornergy comes to mind, like within the Bane segment of the faction, because it had the AoE. And they're like, well, you can't charge it if it's got the AoE. Well, there's only one Bane unit that can't charge what the Desecrator shoots beforehand, and that's the Bane Warriors, because the other two Bane units have 2-inch melee. So why do you need to shoot it with a POW 14 gun before a unit of Bane Warriors charge it? Like, anything that's that hard to kill before the Banes charge you're won't care about a POW 14 hit. Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of what upsets me about this situation, when there's many other situations in the game where this exact problem happens.
In my mind, it's a lot less about not being able to do something than it is what it is you can't do, right? So,
Sure.
For example, the model itself, and I have seen them because I saw them at Warmachine Weekend Homecoming last year. There's a guy playing Gorshade 3 running a couple of them, and he was using them to really good effect. They're really solid.
You have seen people play Desecrators.
I have. I saw that. I saw and I cannot remember his name.
Dan.
He's a really cool opponent. Dan, yeah. Really good guy and really cool list. But I just think that, I think when I look over at it, like, I don't think giving Banes the ability to charge something that you just shot is necessarily a bad thing. I agree, it's probably overkill and it probably isn't necessary at all. Like, because chances are, like, you're going to murder whatever you're going to step onto anyway, and you don't need the Desecrator shot to do the job. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's a bad thing for it to have it. And if it's something that the players wanted because they felt like it was a cool synergy, or it matched in with the army or something, and they were able to get that, but without breaking the model or making him too good in other directions, which he isn't now. I think it's okay to do that, and I think that's I look at it from the opposite direction you do, and I'm like, well, the players wanted it, and they really wanted it to fit inside of the theme and to do all these other cool things, so they could do it without breaking the model or breaking the faction. Go ahead and do it. Give the players what they want and give them something fun to play with, and I think to me that's what I really like out of it.
I don't know. Are we going to go through all of the other examples of when, like, basically a hazard affects friendly models and remove them, though? Like, that's the part where it just seems fairly unfair to me.
Yeah, obviously I don't think they're going to do that. But I think this one thing on a Jack, like, I'm
not saying that this one thing breaks the faction open or anything. Like, it feels very biased when stuff like this happens.
Well, sure, because then you're looking at it going, well, like, I think it'd be really good if my X could do this, whatever this is, whatever X is, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Because you're like, well, I'm just going to wait until my faction goes into C.I.D. and then I'm going to make him do this. Like, I want Gunbjorn to be Rate of Fire too, because that sounds like it's a good thing. Or whatever the case may be. And, like, no, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just, I feel like in this particular instance, because of the theme and the development that is parallel to the theme, I think it was actually pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know, I look at this and I look at, like, a Ravagore shoots a heavy and now your swordsman can't charge it because they die. Like, and that's actually much more relevant because they only have one unit of hard-hitting infantry in their entire faction. And it's actually held out by that, which might be the reason we don't see Ravagores. Like, but that seems like a much more important change than this change. And I felt like it only happened because, like, 5 people went online and complained about it till it changed. So I guess my question is, they had a valid argument that this is a counter-synergistic piece, but they didn't go through and fix all of those situations. They went through and fixed the one that somebody complained about. So that's my worry is, like, so only the people that go online and complain about it are going to get those changes made. So should I just devote one weekend tonight or 1 weeknight that I just go online and complain about stuff on the forums? Or, like, that's where it gets me. Like, this is where I get emotionally conflicted. Like, I like to see good changes happen, but I don't feel like this was the change needed even in this exact situation.
So did the theme force limit which jacks you could take?
I mean, it's a non-character jack. So
just non-character?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was not... I mean, I don't know if they went through and changed what characters could be taken in it. I think it's just Death Jack, isn't it?
Yeah, Death Jack was the only one.
Only character,
at the end
yeah.
Of the
So the reason
that
the Desecrator was fairly important is because it has Accumulator Bane.
Right.
But I always thought the actual, like, point of this model was to protect your Banes from infantry with the Scathers. So you would move forward with the Desecrators. They power up. You would walk forward. You'd place Scathers behind what you were charging with your long range guns. That would protect your Banes on the following turn. Then your Banes would go in and kill the stuff in front of the Scathers. That's how I always pictured it going. So the counter synergy doesn't really exist because, like I said before, what are the odds you need to shoot the thing your Bane Warriors are going to charge with a single POW 14? Like, that's probably not going to make the difference. It could, but it's probably not in your game plan that, man, if only I had one more POW 14. Like, well, I guess that could matter, but as on the other side, like, people like Ravagores and Swordsmen or stuff like that, that's very important. Like, they need to be able to hit that. Or, like, models without reach trying to charge something that their caster casts Eruption on. Like, that's obviously not a good idea. Like, so stuff like that happens, and like, well, so when I bring that up, they're like, well, just don't cast Eruption on what you're going to charge with your Chaosies. It's like, well, but that's not the point we're making. Like, why does one hazard not affect friendly models after a change and the other ones don't? Like it just seems very non-fair, despite, like, the whole point of it is, like, acid. Like, I'm pretty sure acid eats through bone. Like,
unless you're wearing a mask.
Unless you're wearing a mask. Everybody gets gas masks. Like, they could have just done that. Like, they could have just said, oh, Bane Warriors gain immune to corrosion in the theme. Like, that would have been interesting. Like, I don't know. So I'm not trying to complain about C.I.D. right now. I'm just, it's stuff like that that bothers me, and these worries might go away after seeing 2 years of C.I.D. But as of right now, every change that's happened to the game has primarily happened because of complaining, and I don't like that at all, that our community has turned into whine to get your stuff, and it's really bothering me. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a downer.
No, you're fine. The only thought, like, and I agree, like, time is going to tell the bigger story when it comes to C.I.D. Mm-hmm. I just think that when I look at it, I mean, yeah, I definitely understand your point of view about the majority of changes happening to the game because of concerns that have been voiced or complaints or whining or however you want to phrase it.
I don't think anyone's going to play the Bane theme when it comes out other than just they want to, unless very specific things start taking over the meta.
Well, I actually think that's where the Bane theme is actually at its strongest. Because right now, we're looking at, you know, Jack spam in particular is just, it's the dominant archetype in the game right now. Like, it just is. And that Bane theme, like, I don't think Banes have changed so dramatically, specifically Bane Warriors, that the game has changed so much that Bane Warriors aren't going, like, a Bane Warrior theme is not just going to shred armor. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's actually interesting. The only thing I worry about that, and this is kind of more of a meta thing, but I worry about what happens if you try to take a Bane theme and Ghost Fleet theme at the same time, because then you're kind of surrendering Bliss Chicken to the guy who can kill infantry. But it's interesting nonetheless, though. Like, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in 3 months.
So we've talked about the Desecrator a little bit. Let's talk about the other things that have changed. So that was Warjacks. Let's go to solos. Banelord Tartarus. As far as I understand, the only things that changed about Tartarus is he changed Curse for Veteran Leader, and he went down 2 points. I think this is probably fine. It's probably closer to where he should have been. The Curse effect was nice.
Well, the Curse affected everybody, right?
It was all Banes, but he had to move forward to do it, and so now he's just kind of like a passive buff. It's easy to put him where he probably needs to be, and he's Command 9, so it's really easy for him to put his buff where it needs to be. I like the change to Tartarus.
It was also a magic ability, wasn't it? Cursing?
No, it was just an auto hit. It was just an ability. So that was that, and then down to units. There's quite a few changes to units. So starting off, Bane Knights. There's some units I always think are hard to balance. For example, Bane Warriors, or Bane Thralls in Mark II. They're extremely hard to balance when you give a unit like that stealth. And much the same, Bane Knights are really hard to balance when you gave them Vengeance. Removing both of those rules and give them other quality of life changes, I think, is a lot better. It feels like more like what the type of unit should be. Like, for instance, Bane Knights are just a quality infantry now. They hit pretty hard on a charge. They have Ghostly, which is one of the most convenient rules in the game. And then Set Defense and Wall of Steel gives them okay survivable stats. And then going down, we have Bane Warriors. In Mark II now have Lost Stealth. Both units have gone down points since Mark III's release. And the Bane Warrior UA, now instead of having they create guys on their kills, they now have Voidbringer. They midi-feat return D3 plus 1 destroyed grunts to play. The return models must be completely within this model, and completely within 3 of this model, and they forfeit their combat actions. So it gives them a little bit of attrition versus infantry. And how many points is the UA? It's 5 points. So you're basically paying 5 points for 2 to 4 more models, which is pretty cool.
It's also worth noting that the UA has 2 attacks.
Yeah.
So you're actually paying 5 points for 3 attacks.
Yeah.
Plus the ability to recur potentially 2 to 3 more attacks. What's really interesting, though, is that on Voidbringer, it's very easy to be able to just recur those guys at 3 inches and then be able to move them off of their recursion for like a better position. So that way you have, instead of having like the one guy that you're going to have to run to initiate Dark Shroud in like different places or something, you actually could use Voidbringer. So not only are you getting those guys back, but you may be able to get Dark Shroud to trigger in the locations that you might have to sacrifice an attack to do it, which has been really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to feed them back in advantageous locations.
Yeah.
Probably biggest change of all of the units is the Bane Riders. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they actually went down to melee range 1 at the start of Mark 3.
Yes.
That is
Pretty sure they did. So they're back up to melee range 2 now, and they got Vengeance instead of the Thrall or the Knights having it, which I think is a much better fit. Yeah, I like this a lot. And then going down the list, we get down to Mechanothralls, gained a point of defense back and went down to 9 points for a unit. And then Necrosurgeon and Stitch Thralls can now return any Thrall unit, not just Mechanothralls. Thrall units are Mechanothralls, Bile Thralls, and Carrion Thralls at this point.
For small base.
Yeah, it has to be a small base unit. Soul Hunters are also Thrall units, as Jeremy pointed out earlier. Oh wait, hold on. Ha! You can return the Stitch Thralls to play.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but that is a Thrall unit.
I was just sitting here looking at it like, hey, that's a Thrall unit. Cool. All right. Well, I like a lot of the infantry changes. Bane Knights were definitely overcosted after the loss of Vengeance, and I think 15 points is pretty fair for them. It turns them into more of like a quality quantity unit where they're not too expensive to worry about taking a whole bunch of them. Then they used to be like 18 points. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were 18. Or maybe they were 16 and the Thralls were 17. But Thralls are down to 16 with a 5-point UA now, so they're 21 points with UA. That feels like they're about in the general neighborhood of like Sentinels or something.
Yeah, that's essentially where they're at. When they started Mark III, they were 18 points apiece. They were essentially 1 point converted over cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like where a lot of the Bane units and the Bane models ended up. I think Bane Cav are probably pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a whole lot of play with them. We have one player who was playing around with them, and unfortunately never got a chance to get a game in against them.
I played with them, and I thought they felt strong but fair. I don't know. They didn't seem crazy to me, but this seemed like something that someone might want to put on the table. But again, that was only one game, so.
Well, that's kind of where I think that's where I feel about them. Like, Speed 7 doesn't make them the quickest cav in the game, but Speed 7 with Vengeance means that if you're going to throw attacks into them, you have to dedicate an overwhelming amount of force. Otherwise, these guys are going to go a very long distance.
Yeah.
On their next turn. So I think it's a really cool counterbalance mechanic that they put into them.
Also,
so I think it's really good.
Also, having Vengeance plus Brutal Charge means that they can still Vengeance to like max melee and then charge you again, which is a nice interaction. So they can go into base with a heavy, and if they don't kill it and the heavy hits them, then you can back up to either out of melee or max melee and then go back in with another charge. Like
being able to play like the Vengeance games with charges, because we saw people do that all the time in Mark II with Bane Knights. Mm-hmm. It makes a lot more sense off of Cavalry, which I'm a lot happier about. So I'm also just happy to see Bane Riders hit the table. I really like Bane Riders. I've always loved the idea of Bane Riders. So I look forward to seeing them hit, because I think we're going to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Soul Hunters have to use their own corpses now to do Incorporeal?
Yeah. It's been that way since Mark III. But yeah.
Like, I've looked at Cricks since.
I know, yeah. All right, so we've covered the Crick stuff. I'm more interested to see what the Theme Force
Battle
is
Engine?
like. But I expect the Theme Force will pretty much gain like 15 free points and play Crixy stuff.
Yeah, based on what we've seen out of C.I.D. so far, I really don't think that the last edition or the last release of the Theme Force is going to be that much different than what we actually see hit the table.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if it was vastly different.
We didn't talk about the Wraith Engine, did we?
We did not. It's poop and garbage.
Poop and garbage. No one should ever take it, right?
Battle Engine, Wraith Engine. So it's still 15 points.
Hey, it's one of the saddest battle engines I've ever seen.
Why? That's because it droops. That's not its fault.
I don't.
It has to be made. in resin. All right, moving on. So its stat line appears to be the same. Yep, doesn't see any changes. Melee attacks are same hit points. Still has Dark Shroud, still has Inscrutable, still has Rapid Strike. Basically, the only change that I see is Unhallowed has changed to be models. While in this model's command range, friendly faction undead models have +2 armor against ranged and magical attacks. It is a pretty big change. It was already really good, but I think it's obviously going to be taken even more now. It's going to be seen in the Bane theme. It's going to be seen in Ghost Fleet just as much as it currently is. It's probably the most taken battle engine in the game currently, and it's probably going to stay up and around that area.
Yeah, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Ghost Fleet loves it. The Bane theme is really going to love it. Like a min unit of Bane Knights acting as a buffer to protect a Wraith engine seems to me like, defense 14, arm 18 versus a melee attack versus a melee charge, or defense 12, arm 20 versus gunfire. Seems like that's going to be a challenge to bring down very easily. And I think we're going to see it for that purpose. Bane Riders love this thing, especially since it can actually keep up with him because it's a pretty quick battle engine.
Yeah.
So I think between the battle engine and Derek Wraith, we're going to see both of them quite a bit.
Yep. All right, so I think that's the Crix battle engine. Let's move on to Signar.
So I have a local Signar player who absolutely loves the Stormstrider. He loves anything electrical. He loves to shoot and leap, and it is what brings him so much joy in this game, and everybody else so much misery. And it's really interesting.
He's extremely biased, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
The thing is when C.I.D. started, he was super excited about the Stormstrider. And then as C.I.D. kind of went on, he kind of waned on it a little bit. And then when the final rules released, he's legitimately super excited to get it out there. He's been slamming the group chat with Dojo every day with Nemo 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously the big changes are it no longer gains power up whenever it takes damage. Instead, when it advances, you get to power up for D3 power up tokens. It's got a fairly long range POW 15 gun that's going to generate leaps. And then it has its command ability. And a lot of those, the biggest change, of course, being that it gains the ability to boost after an advance. So essentially, turn 1, you get to run, you're going to get D3 power up, and then turn 2, you're going to get to spend it. And that seems really strong. So I actually think we're probably going to see Stormstriders on the table. Like, I think they're strong enough that we're going to see them on the table now. I know my local player's chomping at the bit to play as many as he can.
It used to be Gunfighter, wasn't it?
I think so.
Used to, I think.
Yeah. Now it just says dual tech.
Yeah.
Obviously better. So, any real fundamental changes other than it gets power tugs when it moves, not when it stands still? It's up to 33 hit points now.
Yeah, it mainly got more boxes. Speed is the same.
Seemed like it mostly stayed the same because this is one of the ones that it wasn't taken because of popular opinion. I think it was actually quite good and just wasn't played.
I think it's very limited to what army type you're taking. I think if you're going to do electrical, you're going to take it. But outside of that, I don't.
Part of the problem might have also been it was outshadowed by Storm Lances because of how few boxes it had in the past.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. I think the changes actually bring it back to the table. I think it was legitimately a weaker choice to take in an army.
That's what
models that take damage to be good are bad models.
Well, I think it was good without, but yeah, that's...
Well, no, at Mark III, it still started with 3, right?
No, it never started with tokens. Only in a Theme Force.
Yep, only
it was played in the Theme Force because it could boost, but it was mainly played in the Theme Force because it was Haley. But anyway, I think it was good in Mark II. I do think it was outshadowed by other choices. I think the same thing was true in the start of Mark III. I think now that it has an actually different role than Storm Lances, then I think it's going to get played more. Because the problem being that like we mathed it out. Like Parker and I sat down. Yeah. He had a Storm Strider in his list, and we just did the points. We're like, you're just better taking Storm Lances because they do more damage. You end up with even more attacks, and it does more damage. So we just took out the Storm Strider, where I think that might not be true anymore, which would be good for Sigmar.
Definitely, if the C.I.D. theme holds true and Stormlance's lost Electro Leap on the gun, I think that's definitely true.
I think primarily now that it is hard to kill and the Stormlances aren't as hard to kill, I think that'd be the premier difference. Because putting that in a zone versus putting like Stormlances in a zone like is a very different thing, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But when
that thing with Arcane Shield on it is hard to bring down.
Yeah.
Well, it's also going to be able to capture a different zone than
it's true.
Stormlances.
Ooh, that's a really good point.
So moving on to Vessel of Judgment.
What faction is that?
As a Protectorate of Minuth, I think it's pronounced.
Isn't it just Minoth?
It has 37 hit points now.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad. Speed 4, Rat 6, Arm 20. Immune to Fire, Gunfighter. Has a magical range 12, POW 15 gun. Said gun has Admonisher and Reload 1. It can suffer D3 damage points to make an additional attack. I assume everyone's familiar with Admonisher at this point. And then its miracles, I assume, are pretty much the same. It can still take 1 damage to boost. D3 damage to perform a miracle. Once per turn, anytime during its activation, remove D3 damage points from one other friendly faction model. Oh, excuse me. From other friendly faction models in its command range. So it still has the heal thing. Additionally, when its miracle is used, enemy upkeep spells, animi on models and units in its command range immediately expire. They can keep these spells in play by suffering D3 damage. Doors of Judgment, once per turn, when friendly living faction warrior model in this model's command range is disabled by an enemy attack. Anytime except while advancing, this model can use this miracle. Disabled model can immediately make a full advance and make 1 basic attack. It is not a melee basic attack. That's kind of cool. So, I don't know if that's relevant on anything.
I think we're going to see the Vessel of Judgment.
Yeah, probably. And then Eruption of Faith, which is way better than it used to be, but hasn't changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're going to see this guy. I kind of have this fear of this Harbinger list with a Vessel of Judgment just constantly healing and martyring and healing and martyring. And Incinerators especially, I think, are going to be seen with this thing. So I think it's solid. I think it's really good quality of life improvements.
Everyone hates me, but I think Bastions are better than Incinerators in that list.
They may actually be.
Being able to spread the damage on like 1 or 2, like when look, take like 3 is like, yeah, I'll put it on this guy, and you're like, okay, I guess. And like, I thought you were gonna martyr again. It's like, no, why would I martyr? It's only 3 damage. And like, take 10, like I'll martyr that. And like, thanks.
Yeah.
Take 1, yeah, I'll put that over here.
I think with the loss of 3 hit points, people just overreacted.
They are much easier to kill, but it's a combination of 3 less hit points and a lot more hard-hitting attacks in the game. Because when Martyrdom was really running rampant, it was because the only things people had were power 10s, and that Bastion and Avenger list I built was just nothing but armor 16 and 19. So you just ran out of quality attacks about halfway through your turn, and that's when Martyring just sat back and won the game. Because 1 in 3 of your attacks would actually do damage, and they wouldn't actually kill anything. Well, that's the Protectorate battle engine. Moving on to the K-Dorable battle engine. Winter Guard Gun Carriage. So this model has 38 hit points. This is another model of, I really don't know why they changed it, because I played the Gun Carriage before, and I thought it was very good. Several other people I know thought it was very good. Everyone else thought it was garbage, because they didn't own one.
Yeah.
And I can understand not wanting to buy a $100 model, but it was so good before. So it's just very good in different ways now.
Did the reposition go down? Or was it
was always repo.
It was always 3.
Mm-hmm. It gained 14 hit points, which is a pretty noticeable amount of hit points. Its weapon stayed the same, pretty much, except the biggest change is it can no longer trample. Instead of trampling, it has the most ridiculous rule I've ever seen on a model. Crushing weight, I assume everyone's familiar unless you don't follow C.I.D. But it came out as we expected it to. When this model charges, it is not required to move at least 3 inches when making impact attacks. And instead of making impact attacks only once, this model can make impact attacks each time it contacts a model for the first time during a charge. It also has knockdown on its melee weapon, so you effectively ignore tough if they're not steady. And then ton of bricks, if it hits with a non-impact attack, it slams the model D3 inches directly away. It's a very, very strong assassination piece and anti-infantry piece. Its guns still do 4-inch rough terrains. The biggest change is it's now an upfront piece, which I do like with the speculated 2017 rules coming around. It's now able to stand in zones and not get shot off the board.
The range on the weapons changed, right?
Were they 12 before? I thought they were 10s, but I might be wrong.
Weren't they 14?
They were 12. They were 12.
They were range 12.
They were range 12.
Yeah, the guns came down 2 inches of range, and it can't trample anymore, so it lost 5 inches of threat.
Yeah.
But really all that does is prevents it from trampling on turn 1 to put rough terrain in front of your opponent before they go, which was super annoying when it actually worked. Like, I played against Richard, a local Menoth player, a couple times. I got, like, the god drifts. And, like, he basically just ran 4 inches forward his entire turn. He's like, this is the worst. It's like, and at that point, I was close enough to just keep the rough terrain on top of him the entire game. So, he's trying to run at me with a Durst brick, and basically he has to cast Boundless Charge to do anything but walk forward. It was really annoying. I think this model was really good before. They lowered its point cost by 1, which is really interesting. Primarily because I had a list, I had a Strakov list that was like 1 point short of being absolutely ridiculous, and now the battle engine is 1 point cheaper. So now I think I have that point if I want to throw that list back together.
All right.
I don't know. I think this was another example of like a model being a 7 and then going to an 8, and like I don't know why we needed a change for that, but I understand they want to do all the battle engines at the same time. So I feel like this one was justified. Kind of trying to bring all the battle engines in line with base function. They're from what I've seen in several games so far, they're basically just bruisers. Like, they feel like a mix between heavies and gargantuans. Like, they go in, they kill stuff really good, they draw a lot of attention, and then they die.
Well, it's like their main fault used to be that, you know, they didn't get focus.
Mm-hmm.
So now it almost seems like they don't need it.
Yeah. Like the Khador battle engine, like you can't let that. I mean, its melee attack was its boost function because it had line breaker, but I don't know. Seems very good now. I would be surprised if Khador players don't consider playing one because it's very strong. We already talked about tricks, so going on to Retribution of Syra.
So the Retribution battle engine underwent just a couple of minor, not that important changes. It picked up Carapace.
What?
It did go down by
the fuck were they thinking giving that model Carapace?
Just let me get through the model. Let me get through the model. Shut up, Brayden. It picks up Carapace, and in addition to picking up Carapace, it also picked up Polarity Field.
No, it always had Polarity Field.
Did it always have Polarity Field?
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, it's a battle engine that has focused power now. So while within 2 inches of this model, the ranged weapons of friendly warjacks gain +2 range, which is, I think it always had that, and if it didn't, it's kind of meaningless. But the biggest things is that
kind of like the Storm Strider's extra damage. It's just yeah,
its cannon picks up Rate of Fire 2 and has 3 attack types: Blasted Earth, which leaves 4 inches of rough terrain; Destructor, which is the crazy one to me, which is damage rolls resulting from this attack are automatically boosted, and then Momentum, which is the slam version. The thing that gets me is with focus power, this guy goes to POW 16. Aiming, he's Rat 9. So he goes to POW 16, Rat 9, boosted on damage with Rate of Fire 2. So this thing is going to put out some serious damage at range, and it's going to be very, very difficult to deal with until you're right on top of it. And I think if you're getting a Juggernaut on top of an Arcantric Force Generator, I think that game's probably over anyway.
So I'm looking, it has 29 hit points. So it has 4 less than the Signar one. And has effectively like 4 more armor, right?
Has 29?
Yeah, because he goes
29 instead of 33. Has 4 less hit points. Is the Storm Strider 19 or 18 armor? I think it's 19.
I believe it is 19, but I will double check that real quick while you continue complaining.
Okay. I'm actually totally fine with its offensive output. It hits very hard for guns. Very hard for guns. But the thing I just can't understand... It's also base rat 7. Why is it base rat 7 if it's going to aim every turn? Like, that doesn't...
Gunfighter.
So? It has Polarity Shield. Why the fuck do you need Gunfighter? Like, I can understand it having Gunfighter on the off chance, but why? I mean, I feel like they're intentionally just giving it rules so people can play it. Like, it was, like, we know that this line in the sand is good. This is a good, playable, solid model. But Ret players refuse to play the models we want them to play, so we're going to give it just 2 more stats it doesn't need. It just doesn't make sense.
I also have a Colossal that doesn't have any offense.
Yeah, because maneuvering the board is no offense. Haley, too, is the least offensive caster in the game.
Uh-huh.
That's how that works.
Yep.
Said the ignorant person to my left. Hi, Jeremy.
Oh.
Don't stay stupid shit.
So as a basis of comparison, the Storm Strider's armor is 19.
Okay. So you give up 4 hit points for 3 points of armor at ranged and Polarity Shield. So it is probably 3 times as survivable as the Storm Strider, before even taking into account the distance at which it will be shooting every turn. The only thing I will give them is that you could potentially stand out of its maximum range so that it had to walk towards you and lose some of its benefits. But at range 14, you're really only going to be able to do that once. I don't like it having Carapace. If they wanted to make it armor 20, then that's fine. Make it armor 20. But armor 22 against guns, and there's no way to get around it. There's no bless. There's no, like, chain weapon. There's nothing you can do to get around the armor 22 at range. Like, it's so frustrating. Because there's some armies that just can't kill that at range. Like, it's impossible. And if your opponent plays correctly, then you should never get in melee with it until the game's over anyway. So, like, it should just be something you pay points for, and it shoots 20 inches off your board edge every turn. Like, that should... Like, if you wanted to not die, why is it in the game? It's just very annoying. I don't know, does this make sense to anybody else? Like...
No, I understand what you're saying.
Like, how does Scorn kill that with a gun?
Scorn's not going to kill that with a gun. Scorn's going to trample on top of it.
Yeah. Sure.
Like, that's how Scorn's going to kill it. Well, I mean, like, I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that's the reality.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to kill it, you're going to be slamming something to get on top of it, or you're going to be trampling something to get on top of it, and you're going to be buying a bunch of attacks.
I find that unlikely, right. But sure. You're not going to get to it until the game's over, so it doesn't matter, because the point at which in the game where it dies, the game doesn't matter. Sure.
I also think though that the speed value on the model does help. It is a speed 4 model.
Again, it's going to run once and then aim and shoot for the rest of the game.
Right.
Unless your opponent runs real far, then it'll just aim and shoot for the entirety of the game.
Sure, and also assuming that there's no terrain available that disrupts like what it wants to be doing, because at the end of the day, and I'm going back over to it real quick, so I just want to fact check myself. But at the end of the day, it is still a 17-point model for 2 PAL 16s.
So now, I just want to bring up the fact that I just want to say that you said if there's a lot of terrain to help it, then doesn't it just put more 4-inch rough terrains everywhere? Thus making the game even harder to play for you?
It might.
Okay.
But if he's dropping rough terrain, then he's not throwing out boosted damage rolls.
Well,
so
but this is in the scenario that you're hiding behind the terrain.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make is that there may be the opportunity to utilize terrain to block line of sight, to where he doesn't necessarily always get the shots on the key pieces that he wants to shoot. And instead, he may end up taking shots on things like Marauders, which is okay. Like, because 17 points to dump a pair of boosted 16s into a Marauder, like, that's probably okay. Will he probably kill one at range over the course of 2 turns? Absolutely, he probably will. But it's a 10-point Marauder.
I understand what you're saying, Scott, but how is that different from, like, a Defender who is roughly the same point cost? He's 1 point cheaper, has roughly the same hit points, roughly the same armor before Carapace, exactly the same armor before Carapace, has one gunshot at one less POW and has to pay for the boost.
Because a defender is a Mat 7 power strength 18 melee beater as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think every Signar player would rather that defender have a second defender cannon and unlimited focus. And Carapace. And Polarity Field.
But it's also not, like, to be completely fair here, it's not unlimited focus. Its damage rolls are boosted if it chooses that attack type.
Sure.
But you're not boosting the 2-hit attempt. Now at Rat
That's
7,
true. Its base rat is just higher.
Yeah. and I concede that point. At Rat 7, you probably don't need to boost that often. But this thing is going to go. Especially
when you're going to aim.
Heavies.
Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying, Scott. I feel like this model was intentionally just made outside of the bell curve of the entire game to get Ret players to play it. I don't know why else. I want someone to give me a reason this model exists other than that. And then I'll calm down, I guess, is my point. There's no reason that these rules need to be on one model.
I think Ret legitimately needed a strong ranged presence, which is what's missing from that faction.
Oh, they don't have the guns, is what you're saying.
What's that?
You're saying Ret doesn't have enough guns. Is that correct?
I'm saying Ret doesn't have a long-range high-pow. Ret does not have a long-range high-pow gun platform, and this provides it to him. I understand the logic in it. Mm-hmm. Like, and when you read the dev notes about how they wanted it to play and the role they wanted it to fill inside of Retribution, I feel like this model does that really well. Now, I agree with you. I think it's too survivable. If you gave it Carapace, I think you should take away Polarity Field. If you leave Polarity Field, it probably shouldn't have Carapace, even if that means that you increase the armor a little bit. Like, I agree with that, because the model is too difficult to remove from the table. Or at least, I think it might be too difficult. I'm
very upset with Ret as a faction, and I think that should be pretty obvious to everyone listening to the sound of my voice. But I feel like I'm just tired of Ret getting the, here, look, I put my model down and I press the button on top of it and try and win the game, because I don't need to actually understand how to play this game at all. My models just have weird stats and special rules that they shouldn't have. Like, I just feel like Ret is the biggest point-and-click army that just basically ignores how the game is played, and it annoys the shit out of me. I admit that. I'm biased.
You do realize, yes, you do realize Ret players say the same thing about Marauders, right?
That's fine. There's a reason I don't see those Harkovich 10 Marauders lists winning anything either. Much like we don't see Red armies winning anything.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I do feel like there's a certain level of frustration that you have with Ret as a faction that shows through, because I don't, like, even though the Space Tick is way more survivable than it should be, and no one's going to argue that, I don't think it's quite as bad as you're positioning it to be, but I understand completely your concerns with its design. Does that make any sense?
I think roughly what you said is, I'm extremely biased, but my concerns are vaguely grounded in reality.
Not vaguely. I mean, they're not. I mean, like,
well,
you're an exceptionally good player.
That sounded like what you said, Scott. You should just own up to it.
No, I'm not. Vaguely is not the word to use. Like,
loosely?
Your concerns, like,
skeptically.
Oh my God, I'm going to.
Because I would have agreed with you if you had agreed with what I said. I think my concerns are loosely grounded in reality.
I feel like your concerns they're not grounded loosely in reality. They're not grounded vaguely in reality. They are grounded in reality. Your experience on the tabletop, and mine too, tells me that Carapace and Polarity Field plus a POW 16 range 16 boosted damage roll gun.
Don't forget Rat 9. It's Rat 9.
Rat 9 at that point.
You almost forgot.
Probably insane.
Oh, it's magical too, just in case.
Yeah.
Because God forbid they might have to learn how to use a buff on their
But
model.
at least it's not an AoE and boosted.
Yeah, at least it's not boosted AoE.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't even have rapid fire. It's just rate of fire 2. Why is it? At least if it had rapid fire, that way it's heavily penalized for moving. Cool. All right, let's talk about the next battle engine.
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now.
After looking at Ret, I think this model needed to be buffed.
Oh, God, just stop.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have Polarity Shield and Carapace, so I don't know how to balance it if it doesn't have those two rules.
God, Brandon, stop.
Stop what?
Just stop.
Speak of the gospel.
Okay.
All right. Next.
All right. So the next one is
the Transfinite Emergence Projector.
It gained 1 hit point.
Nice.
And that's it. On to the next one.
It can use its servitors now.
Wait, what? Oh, that's been changed for a while.
Yeah. It gained a point.
Whoa, it has gun platform. Holy shit. It has gun platform. That's a Mark II rule. Did you see that?
They add
it actually does not have dual attack anymore. It has gun platform.
Oh, okay.
Can make range attacks even while in melee, because it doesn't have a melee attack. So it lost dual attack. Still has Sackpawn servitors. I don't know why they have to be base to base with it now. That's just weird. It used to be within an inch, and I understand that they changed to completely within, but why isn't it completely within 2 inches? It actually makes it kind of odd, because you can easily get into a situation where you can't actually place your servitors.
I don't know, honestly. I don't. Every time I've ever played against the Transfinite Emergence Projector, one of 2 things have ever happened. Either I pick the thing up off the table as quickly as humanly possible, or it picks me up. So, I have no idea why. It's an exceptionally strong battle engine. We've seen him in Convergence the entire time. We're going to continue to see him in Convergence. End of story.
I think they're actually overrated, but it is a very strong piece.
Okay. Oh, God. I'm going to regret doing this. I know I'm going to regret doing this. Why is it overrated?
The rules it has on it are very good, but existing outside, it's very easy to kill and must get within kill range. So in most games, if you just position your army to correctly be able to countercharge it, not countercharge the rule, but set up, if you have greater than a 10-inch threat range, or just make a line of dudes, in a semicircle around it, it can usually only actually kill one of them, and then just charge it. It's not actually that hard to get off the table, which is the only downside to it. Its offensive potential is great. There's no argument against that. The mechanics in the army are great. The servitor flexibility of its gun is very strong. But when it comes down to it, it's a spray 10, and there's a limit to what spray 10s can do. Mainly shoot 11 inches away. And
yeah, but it's spray 10 that you can always boost.
Sure, it's a spray 10, you get a bunch of extra dice, which is really good. If you are vulnerable to a spray 10 in any way, it's bad for you. But there's still a limit to how much damage it can do. If I shoot at a jack, unless I'm putting all 5 dice in damage and have flared you first, it's not actually that threatening. Any kind of defensive terrain like elevation that can actually affect it, or spell buffs against it to where you actually raise your defense, dramatically impact its damage output. And it pretty much has to focus fire one thing other than spraying out a bunch of easy-to-kill dudes.
Yeah.
But if you just stack your threat ranges correctly, you can put a lot of pressure on it to where it basically has to commit suicide to use its attacks. And that's the only downside, is where it has to stand to do work is very vulnerable. And it's you can see here, the easiest to kill battle engine. So,
sure, I actually agree with that. I see your point of view. I agree with that. Because every time I've had to play against one and I've picked it up off the table, it's always been because I know he has to come forward, so I'm able to stack enough threat behind whatever he's going to blow up to pick it up off the table.
Yeah. You can actually shoot it off the board fairly easily if it's not a Lucant list. The 3 Sackpawns are relevant, but if you have a quantity of quality attacks, it's actually very threatening to it. But yeah, it's very good. I certainly would play them, and I think people should continue playing them. But again, I think this, an example of the Ret versus this one in an actual conversation, this is exactly how you balance high offensive output, is by making the model in danger, not by removing it from the game and making it irrelevant to put it on the table. Look, I'm 16 inches away from you and have Carapace. I'm sweet. So there's no point in attacking you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, sure. Okay.
I do wish it had gone up to 30 hit points, but it's probably fine where it is.
Yeah, I'm of 2 minds, but it's definitely fine where it's at. It's definitely one of the best battle engines in the game.
I don't know that I would say that. I think it is a good battle engine. I think that it is one of the best models in the faction, which is why it sees so much play. And if you think Convergence is just a strong faction, you should go peruse the models that they don't play and realize that they're a terrible faction. I think there are 5 playable models in the entire faction.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that.
And that's part of the reason I'm so bitter when like Scorn players are like, we need a faction rewrite. I'm like, have you read the Convergence rules? Like, they've been hands down the worst faction since the release of Mark III.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Only their theme brought them problems.
Well, I mean, when their designer is no longer at the company.
That shouldn't affect you designing a product. That's objectively a bad company decision, then. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, going back, let's look at some of their... Like, one of the more played Warjacks in the army, unfortunately, has POW 15 melee attacks and costs 12 points. Like, that's it. That's what he does. Like, congrats, your army is amazing. Yeah, their comparison to the Marauder is armor 18 with 28 boxes and power 14 melee initials. Like, that's on par with the Marauder. I mean, don't get me wrong, Marauder is probably the gold standard of any 10-point model, so... Oh, let's hear. Our 16-point heavy. 1 POW 17 initial. It's pretty solid. POW 13 gun. Nice. Real nice. Speed 4. Yeah. I don't know. I love Convergence, but I think that they are in a really obviously painted corner at this point. I'd wish that would change.
I mean, who knows, though? Like, almost all the factions are going to go through some form of C.I.D., so that may be an opportunity to do some work on them.
We've seen one faction go through C.I.D.?
We've seen elements from one go through C.I.D. for sure.
1.5.
So, well, no, because Scorn wasn't C.I.D., it was just a rewrite. So we didn't actually see those. So we've seen roughly half of a faction, and we're basically right at the 1-year mark. Because Lock and Load is, what, this weekend? 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So we're 2 weeks away from a full calendar year.
Now they know when we record.
No, I said it wrong. That's why.
Right, okay.
So after 50 weeks, we've seen half a faction. So 13 factions, assuming they don't put Grimkin on C.I.D. before COC. Got another, 1,100 weeks, something like that.
See, what you do is you just start making a bunch of COC memes. Because everybody loves cock memes.
Cock memes will win the day. All right, I think we're ready for the next one.
Sure.
The War Wagon.
Yay!
Let's actually not talk about this one. Let's move on.
Okay.
Scott's like, yeah, it's fine.
What?
So we have the War Wagon. It has 38 hit points, much like the Khador Battle Engine. It's armor 19, defense 9. It has a Krill Stone in the faction, so it's probably important to note. Might make it a little harder to kill. The Pounder, range 12, AoE 5, POW 17 with Quake. It's pretty good. It also has Arcing Fire. Scattergun, spray 8, POW 12. It's Scattergun. The melee attack is identical to the Khador Battle Engine, except that this wagon is speed 7. That's pretty much the important notes. Is there anything else on here? It has Shooting Gallery now. +2 on ranged attacks against models within 5 inches. Basically has mark target for itself.
Absolutely.
It's pretty solid. I played against it once. I liked it. It's very good. It has a presence on the board. I don't know. I think the speed 7 is very relevant over the Khador Battle Engine.
Khador is what, 6?
Speed 8.
Speed 8.
The 11.5-inch threat versus 10.5-inch threat is a pretty big difference. At least I'm talking about melee attacks. Basically, how far it threatens like high defense models, because it can get in and slam it into something else, or slam something into someone's caster. So every inch is very important. Ooh, it's strength 14. I didn't see that. Collateral damage might hurt.
The Pounder being at power strength 17 is pretty crazy.
Yep.
I been tinkering around with Grim 2 with this thing. So you could potentially make it Rat 11, power strength 19 on the feat turn if you drop mortality out there. Because he triggers the feat for himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at a minimum he's Rat 9, POW 17. That's pretty ridiculous, especially after trampling into a bunch of stuff. Or not trampling, but crushing weight into a bunch of stuff. So, no, I think he's really good. I'm
also a 5-inch Quake.
I played against this I was playing Sorsha 2 into Grim 2, and he just hard rolled a 16 to put mortality on Sorsha. I was like, you're a dick. She was in a trench. I'm like, fucking asshole. So he puts more mortality on her, but I put her out of 10.5 of the battle engine. So his plan was to trample in and then shoot Behemoth point blank to trigger the quake on her. But he got so like ahead of himself and greedy that he was like, oh, I'm going to charge in and slam Behemoth. So he slams Behemoth out of the 5-inch AoE of Sorsha so that when he quakes Behemoth, it doesn't knock Sorsha down.
It doesn't knock Sorsha down, yeah. Well, lessons learned.
Yeah. I mean, don't be wrong. He just hard rolled and hit her with the scattergun because it was Rat 9. Sorry, wait. Mortality, take aim, shooting gallery. Rat 11 versus Sorsha in it, and it was touching the trench, so I didn't get cover. I'm like, oh, this is fun.
So did Sorsha live through that?
She did. She was iron fleshed, and mainly my feet turn alpha strike killed his 2 bombers, or else I would have certainly died. But he could only really get like the battle wagon, not its melee, but its guns, and let's see, was it 1 slugger and I think 2 burrowers to her? And if it wasn't for that, and I was camp 3 with iron flesh on myself, then I probably would have died.
Nice, sounds like a good game.
Yeah. Oh, my war wagon, or not my war wagon, my battle carriage, got to kill half of his army. It killed all of the burrowers and 2 or 3 of the sluggers, and then knocked down Grim, and then Grim died.
Nice.
All right, I think that's enough with the war wagon. Let's go to the next one. Circle Roboros, the robot faction. So the Celestial Fulcrum. I have one pro tip for you. Don't play 2 Fulcrums into 2 Fulcrums. Moving on.
You're going to have a bad time.
That story Pagani told us was amazing.
That was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the Celestial Fulcrum
has 33 hit points at armor 19. So it's basically a Storm Strider.
Yep. Picks up Fury Bank.
Yep, it has Fury Bank, gun platform. Ooh, another model with gun platform. They're bringing it back. Power of the Stones, Veteran Leader, Black Clad, Electrolead. So it basically is exactly what they spoiled, right? The first time?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not exactly. There were some changes to how Fury Bank, I think Fury Bank or Power of the Stones interact. I can't remember. There were some minor wording changes, but nothing major.
Okay. So yeah, this is clearly a strong option. A lot of people are playing it with like 3 wolves or 3 wool weirds. It's got strong boostable guns. It's got a variety of abilities. Probably the biggest downfall of this model is it doesn't really have shooting defense. It has a boost mechanic. It has support mechanic. It's got good guns. It's got a variety of cool effects. It's got a lot of immunities. The only thing it's not immune to is acid. So, that's certainly got a lot of options. It's got all magical attacks. It's certainly going to see play. It's already seeing play. I think this is probably where most battle engines should be, which probably sounds crazy, but I don't think it's actually overpowering. It's just a good... It's got a lot of support in it leeches Fury in a faction that didn't have amazing Fury removal. It had solid Fury removal. So it gives you an option for even further Fury removal. It gives you, which is containing its boost mechanic, which I think is pretty balanced because you have a way to get rid of its boosting mechanic by getting rid of the wolves. Its offensive potential is solid but not ridiculous, and I think it has to play pretty central to the table, which is where most battle engines should be. I like it.
Yeah. So what I like about it is that I like a lot of the things that you said. I love when they released the rules for the C.I.D. rules for the Grimkin, and I saw the Death Knell battle engine. I was like, oh, this is a really cool model, but it just doesn't do anything on its own. And then they released the rules for the Celestial Fulcrum, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I was kind of hoping like almost all the battle engines would have some kind of like army support or army buff function, because I think that's really cool. I really like the idea of taking this, obviously pretty expensive piece, but this pretty expensive piece has good offensive output, so it's not wasted on its own, but it also gives your army something in return for taking it. I really like that concept, and I was hoping that we would see that with a lot more of the battle engines than what we did. With that being said, I'm not depressed, that the Khador battle wagon or battle engine or the Trollblood battle engine doesn't, or for that matter, the Meat Thresher doesn't do something like stupid ridiculous for the army. Like I'm okay that they don't, but it would be like really cool if they had something.
I kind of like the split we have. So some armies, the battle engines just came down being war machines, and a war machine like the gun carriage, the battle wagon, the Meat Thresher, like they're clearly just weapons of war and just simple machines. So within reason, you can't put too much support on them, but I think they've done a good job of edging it in where they can. Like the war wagon supports the army with the Quake gun, the war wagon for the same reason. The war carriage for the same reason. I'm not sure what the Meat Thresher is. I haven't actually read it yet. But like I think those all have to be just simple weapons of war, as where the more mystical ones like the Fulcrum and the probably the Throne, stuff like that, is generally more intricate in helping things.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, it probably fits the faction identity better that Khador's is a sledgehammer and Trolls is a sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. And then others would be scalpels, and then others would be support. Like, it fits the feel of the armies better. I was just hoping, like, even if you had some stupid rule that was, like, inspiring presence or something, like, all the Trolls are super happy and because they see this gigantic rumbling thing that makes lots of noise. Like, even if you had just, like, something silly like that, I was kind of hoping we'd see a little bit more of that, even if it's just some really minor benefit.
What about
like something that's a corner case? But
what about if like the gun carriage for Khador, because it's a Winter Guard gun carriage and has a bunch of like stowage and stuff on it, packs and stuff on it. All Winter Guard within its command of 10 could like reroll to hit and damage because it has extra bullets. How about that?
That might be too good.
Can we playtest that?
No, we cannot.
I mean, obviously it's got more rockets too, so it just doubles the rate of fire while still giving them rerolls. No, that's actually a shot at 40k. It's like, there's more bullets, you just do more. Like, that's not how bullets work. Anyway, moving on. Sorry. I was intentionally being an ass there.
No, it's fine. I'm used to it.
Okay.
But it's cool. What?
So moving on to Legion of Everbright. Have I been doing this wrong?
A battle engine.
Oh, I've been doing this wrong. I've been counting the health bars wrong. All the ones I said at 33 of 28. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Because
I am insane.
I'm like,
Jeremy's repeatedly updating it.
My cards keep saying version 1.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they all say that.
Maybe the front card hasn't been updated?
No, sorry. I was just miscounting. Sorry. Huh. So the Legion Battle Engine has 31 boxes. It is armor 20 with flight. Has 4 initial attacks at POW 16 with chain weapon. Has circular vision and 3 spells it can cast. Primarily Frostbite, Spine Burst, and Ice Cage. It has a Necrophage ability. Is basically Battle Wizard every time it kills something, which is pretty cool. It also has snacking, so it can heal itself, which is really cool. And Chain Strike, 4-inch melee during its activation. It is a living model. Heads up, guys. It's alive. And it's circular vision. Good luck on those back strikes. So thoughts on this one? I can tell you right now, I've been keeping up with a certain tournament going right now, and a guy got to the semifinals of a convention with 2 thrones already. So, kind of interested. I think he was playing Krissa double throne. It was really weird.
I watched Richie play a game at my house against another local. And he had 2 thrones in a Thagrosh 1 list. Mm-hmm. And it was disgusting. Like, those thrones, flight makes them ridiculous. Just ridiculous. And then if flight wasn't good enough, like, snacking just becomes so crazy on an ARM 20 model with 36 boxes? 5,
31,
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35,
no,
36. 36 boxes, yeah. So... like, stacking just becomes so crazy on something with 36 boxes. I was watching a live stream game from Travis Marg earlier, where his opponent was playing Rias with double battle engine, because battle engines can still be placed. And so he was doing, like, his opponent was doing some really crazy stuff with double thrown Rias. So I think it's really good. 4 attacks at power strength 16 isn't going to kill a heavy, but with Draconic Blessing, you're getting there. But it's this thing is solid. This thing eats infantry like no tomorrow. It may be the most efficient infantry eliminating machine in the game, and that's saying something.
It is the not broken version of the spray that doesn't crit freeze. That's good. And Spine Burst is like ashes to ashes, right? Yep, it's ashes to ashes, basically.
Yeah.
And then Ice Cage.
Ice Cage is just -2 def.
Yep.
It's range 10, -2 def. And then if they're not immune to cold, if you hit them with 3 of them, you'll freeze them. It's stationary.
So, in Mark II, Ice Cage had a phrase in it that said, if you hit with all 3, remove all Ice Cage tokens and they become stationary. That way you didn't get the negative defense in addition to being stationary. But it doesn't have that in Mark III. Because there was a thing that could happen where if a model was immune to stationary but not immune to cold, you could Ice Cage it twice, but if you Ice Caged it a third time, you lost all of your Ice Cage tokens, so it's just normal defense again. But now, if you successfully hit someone with 3 Ice Cages, their defense is -1. Because it's still -6 defense, and they're stationary.
Well, I think at some point, not snakes to hit and auto hit in melee is just not
That's
snakes
correct,
to hit.
But if the model was, for example, in a trench and you Ice Caged it 3 times, its defense would be 3. Which is noticeable for some models in the game that are at 4. Or inaccurate mortars that are at 1.
Yeah, I guess. Okay,
it is relevant that interaction takes place.
Something that needs to be cleaned up. Like, that's probably something that just got overlooked. So, okay, yeah, I can see that. I don't know. The Throne of Everblight is crazy. This model is crazy. I honestly don't know what armies like Legion of Steel do against a single Throne of Everblight. Like, I think it just kills all of them.
Cast Last Stand and charge it.
I mean, you obviously have to.
Joke is, it can't kill your infantry if they kill themselves.
Sure, and hopefully in the Last Stand equation, like, you'll end up killing it too. I look at it, I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I look at a list like Cephalix, like Exelon Thexus's operating theater, where you're literally playing like 50 drudges or 60 drudges. I look at a list like this, and I look at the Throne of Everblight, and I'm like, I think this thing just wins.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Thexus can deal with this thing. Like, I think he literally just kills everything in a 10-inch bubble.
No, he just TKs
it
backwards every turn, so you can't charge him.
Necrophage every time it?
Yeah, it's every time.
Nice. Okay.
Which is why it's cool with Rias, because you get 5 sprays. And you get to place after hitting the first time. All right. Oh, I did want, before, we should mention that I'm very happy the Circle Battle Engine can be placed now. It makes me happy.
Oh, so that way you can stones it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought it was weird that it had arcane interference, but, I mean, At the time where double stones teleporting was a thing, it was probably best that it didn't.
Probably. Although I'd rather them port that than a Stalker, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I agree. I killed a lot of people with double porting Stalkers.
All right, moving on, we've got the Scorn and the Siege Animantrix. It is Speed 8, Strength 15, Mat 6, Rat 5, Def 10, Arm 20, Command 10. Its double Reaver Cannon is a range 12, rate of fire D3 plus 1, POW 13. I assume it is burst fire. Let me get to the back real quick. Volume fire. Whoa! It gets plus 1 attack and damage rolls. This weapon gets medium-based models and plus 2 against large and huge-based models. Club Tail, POW 18, Mount, POW 15. It's got 2 spears. I assume the spears get tokens. Independent attack. This strength of 6, base POW 5, and PS 15 or PS 11. Sorry. During its activation, which spell makes initial attacks with these weapons before it makes its movement. Huh.
Mm-hmm. It can unjam itself.
Huh. That's cool. I assume they have stars as their power and strength so that you can't rage it with the beast handlers.
Would assume so?
Yeah. I think that was the goal there, so that you can't rage the spear attacks. So yeah, 35 hit points, 17 points. Seems like a decent beater. It doesn't have crushing weight or anything really weird, but it has dual attack, repo 3. It can trample at speed 8, which is, it's not irrelevant.
Yeah, they made it cavalry, didn't they?
Clubtail has knockdown. Yeah, it's cavalry. Cantankerous gets rage tokens. Can make additional melee attacks or boost its melee attacks.
Alright, so this model actually has carapace on it.
Yeah.
But
I'd be totally... Well, actually, it's arm 20. I'd probably not be okay with it having...
What if you just glued a bunch of the bugs on there?
They added new artwork for it, too. At least they have fairly recently, and I just never noticed. But that new artwork for the CGI Matrix is pretty cool. It has so many attacks.
It does.
Yeah, I think it could have been okay at Mat 7. But that's probably the only change I would make. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think he's really solid. I think we're going to see him on the table. You won't see him a lot, but I think if someone wants to play Winds of Death, I think he's a very good inclusion without giving up a lot for him.
Yeah. Oh shit, version 2! Jeremy, we're in version 2!
That says version 2.
Why did the other one say version 1?
I don't know if they just didn't update that.
They probably just didn't update that. Okay.
They're getting lazy on their layers.
Alright. I think we're ready to move on to Mercenaries.
Although, no, it did say 2017 version 1.
Which is...
Okay.
This one says 2017 version 2. Alright, moving on. Hammerfall Siege Crawler. Mercenary Rulic Battle Engine.
And nobody's ever going to take that. We'll just skip
What?
it.
It's legit! I've liked it since they spoiled it. It has a bash attack, Jeremy. All dwarf models are better when they have a bash attack. So it's speed 5. So it's a fast one. It's Mat 6, Rat 6, Def 9, Arm 20. It has a quad cannon, range 10, power 12, D3 plus 1 rate of fire. I assume the quad cannon has no special rules. It does not. Has left field of fire, Siege Breaker, right field of fire, Siege Breaker. Has 40 hit points? Yep, 40 hit points. So currently has the most. It has Bulldoze, Dual Attack, Girded, Periscope. This model can use Periscope once per activation anytime. Choose an enemy model in this model's line of sight and it loses stealth for 1 round. What? It's a Reinhold! That's awesome! Who does this thing work for?
Signar.
Signar Kadar! Yes! We'll take all the battle engines. Fuck everybody. Reinforcement Rulic. During your maintenance phase, return D3 small base friendly destroyed Rulic grunts to play. That doesn't say faction.
No, it does not.
Nice. So I can take Arcanus, the Tactical Arcanus Core, put Valachiv on them, and then recur them.
I like his Signar. Aren't Ogren technically Rulic?
Yeah, Ogren are, but there's no units of Ogren in Signar.
Yet.
Yeah, that is... What did you bring that up for, then? Oh, man. That's a good thing that, War Spears aren't Rulic. Alright, returns them with 1 unmarked damage box. The return grunts complete within this model's command range in formation. Isn't that command 10?
It's command 10.
Yeah! Must be within 3 of other models in the unit. Return models forfeit their combat action when they return to play. Critical stagger on the Siege Breaker, and siege weapon, so it's actually die to huge bases. That's pretty cool. So it's like POW 15 weapon master guns against huge bases.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is when you finally manage to get a couple of attacks on their freaking weapon crew, and then they regurgitate the guys for the weapon crew off of the stupid siege crawler.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most infuriating things on the planet. Why? Why?
I like this thing. I like that the recursion isn't faction. I don't know why that's not faction. I don't think it's really abusable, but oh man, it's funny.
No, I mean it's limited to Rulic, so
yeah.
Plus, there's no way to make it another faction.
Well, no, but you can make the units other factions by taking the Rulic unit. Like you could take a unit of Hammerdoors and then put Murdoch on them, so they're Signar, and still recur them with a Merc battle engine,
right?
Which is cool.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be limited to that.
Well, almost all recursion says friendly faction. Just for clarity in future releases is mainly why. All right, I think we're ready to move on. So
it's pretty good. Should be taken.
Should be taken. It makes me want to play Rulic again. Because you could do a really cool list with Durgan and get your boosted AoE attacks and then have siege weapon versus a Colossal Hugger. It's like, oh, hi, I just roll 4 dice with a fucking POW 15 gun. You're like, hey, stop that!
Use it in Signar, get more recursion.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is almost every Merc player I know, except one, doesn't like this thing.
What? What?
They're just like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for its points value. The guns are too weak. No boost mechanic. Blah 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 blah.
Fucking whiny babies. God.
What?
Yeah, people don't like this thing.
It doesn't fit in the list I already play because my list is full. Like, stop. All right.
I've got a Merc player here locally that has absolutely fallen in love with this thing. Mm-hmm. And so the question he's been asking, the question he was asking for a while is like, how do I fit it two? How do I fit it two and put in all the buddies and have like 2 units of Forge Guard? And I'm just like, oh my God, Landon, stop, calm down. Like,
what do you do about like 2 Ostrom-feeded battle engines and zones? Like, that's
not shit.
That's like 40 hit points at Arm 23 that can't be pushed.
No, I liked it when it was at the end of C.I.D. And then they just gave it like Periscope.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, sure, this is great.
Like he played against me. I was playing Horgel, my Horgel 2 list, and he was playing against me, and he had that freaking siege crawler, and he moved him right. He did exactly what you said. He moved him right up into his own, feeded with Osram, and I'm like,
huh. That's right. I don't win this on scenario. Fuck.
I was like, well, I guess it's a good thing it's a construct, and I guess it's a good thing that my list is designed to abuse the shit out of constructs.
Oh, did you get Horgel on that?
I lit it on fire and got like 1 slag troll on him. Mm-hmm. But the thing is like even with 1 slag troll at power strength 17 with 5 attacks, still didn't kill it. Mm-hmm. And then he regurgitates like hammer dwarves, and then they end up getting attacks. He ends up killing one of them. I never killed it. Nice. Like at that point, like it was like, because that's all he had on that flank was like that, and like a min unit of hammer dwarves. And so at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll concede to you that control point because I'm going to push real hard on the other side of the table. Mm-hmm. So I eventually just killed Osram with Mountain King.
Right.
But like it was like I seriously underestimated the amount of firepower I needed to bring to kill that thing.
Yeah.
And if only there was a Warcaster that could repair it.
If only there was, Jeremy.
You're right.
What would his name be?
That guy would be a piece of shit.
Oh.
God, talk about like, oh my God, Osram. Can we just stop and talk about Osram and how much bullshit that Warlock is right now?
Nope.
Like, can we just stop and talk about like how terrible Osram, like, that Warcaster is broken as balls. Like, that guy is stupid. All right, I'm done. Fine, right. On we go. I'm done here.
Now I have a real question. As we get to the next one, I have a serious for realsies question.
All right.
How did the meat thresher not get crushing weight?
I don't know. Probably because it has thresher.
I don't care.
I don't know. You're asking me a question I can't.
It also does not have thresher.
I thought it had thresher.
Nope.
Oh, yeah, it does. Let me find it.
It does not have thresher.
It has a rule where it makes a melee attack against everything in its melee range.
You know what that's not? You know what it's not called?
It doesn't. I don't care about the keyword.
Scott, what's it not called?
Brandon, I don't care about the keyword.
Well, you see, you go around making these statements. You sound like a liar. All right, let's see what it does do. First off, it's got the Crusher. It's 1-inch melee, POW 16. The Hailer, its gun, is range 12, rate of fire D3 plus 1, POW 13. Speed 6, Mat 6, Rat 5, Def 10, Arm 19. Has dual attack, bulldoze, exhaust fumes. When this model advances during its normal movement for 1 round, other friendly models gain concealment while within 3 inches of this model. Turn up the heat. This model can use turn up the heat at the start of its activation. This activation, this model gains plus 2 speed. The end of its activation suffers D3 damage points. Turn up the heat can be used only once per activation. Hailer has volume fire, same ability on the Siege Animatrix. Crusher has grinding wheel. This model gains an additional die on attack and damage rolls against small and medium based models. High impact. This model makes its initial melee attack with this weapon during its combat action. It makes 1 melee attack with its weapon against each model in its line of sight in this weapon's melee range. These attacks are simultaneous. It has knockdown on Crusher and Trash. So, no crushing weight, no thresher. That's just too bad. I mean, it would have been real nice if it had either of those rules. It even has Crusher. You think it would have crushing weight. Jeremy, I'm disappointed in the development of
So
this
the
model.
grind wheel and trash are both additional die.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's
Yeah,
a
I
lot
see
of
that it's
damn
pretty
dice
cool.
it can put out.
It is. If only a crushing weight. Or
Oh
Thresher.
God, stop.
Missed opportunities. Just saying.
Brandon, you're killing me.
Missed
Killing me,
opportunities.
Smalls.
Missed opportunities.
Let's talk Sacrovault.
Let's talk Thresher.
All right, let's talk about it. Other than missed opportunities, what are you
All
going
right.
to add? Nothing.
What I would like
so
to talk about Thresher is how it's not on the Meat Thresher. And it's disappointing.
Okay, fine. The keyworded rule Thresher is not on the Meat Thresher. That's
Well, I
fine.
know that, Scott. I've been saying that for 5
has-
minutes. All right, the Sacrovault has 30 health, speed 4, rat 6, def 9, arm 20. Has Eyeless Sight Gunfighter. Has Soulstorm. Soul Taker Crypt of Souls. And Arcane Vortex and Strength of Death. During its count action, this model can spend soul tokens to boost one attack or damage roll for each soul token spent. What did you say, Scott?
So everything on this thing is pretty much the same except 3 key changes.
Mm-hmm.
The first key change is that now it will work for trolls. The second key change is Deathly Dominion, no longer RFPs.
Oh, yay.
And then the last key change is that it is reload 2 for the cost of souls.
Here's a second. Hi, Spence.
You down there? Okay, I don't know.
Is Jane trying to eat someone again?
Always.
What are we in the middle of?
We're talking to Scott about how the Sacrovault is garbage.
Can I talk to Scott about how much I love him?
No.
That's not okay.
You can always talk to me about how much you love me, Spence.
It's odd how he's just not talking to you at all. That's great.
Scott doesn't love me.
He couldn't hear you when you said that. Mainly because he
I see.
didn't care.
Mostly because I'm black and Scott hates black people.
Spence, when are you going to get over the race card?
I mean, I'm trying to play it. It's
Tired
really
of you
difficult.
playing all the drama.
Wow.
I did finish Supergirl Season 2 today, so
Nice.
They got the second season?
it's going to have a third.
Oh, God.
They did make an announcement today for the
Joe
fifth
made it
time
past
in,
season 1.
for the fifth time in television history, Supernatural is being canceled.
I think that show was canceled around Season 5.
It was. Then they were like, wait, we literally don't have anything else to put on. Get Supernatural back!
Actually,
They realize all their shows are bad sometime around re-signing time.
tried to do research this morning to figure out whether or not I knew anything about the battle engines. They're still on huge bases, right? That hasn't changed? Good.
No.
Okay.
We're actually talking about the last one, then we'll move on.
Actually, they're on 120 millimeter base.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of millimeters.
It's like a fistful of millimeters.
Hi,
All right.
Scott.
So, Deadly Dominion no longer removes from play. It has telemetry, that's new, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
That's pretty cool and stuff. It has Reload 2. Wasn't it like Rate of Fire D3?
It was Rate of Fire D3 before, now it's Reload 2.
Nice. And oddly, now that trolls don't have Far Strike to put on it whenever they feel like, they can take it. That's weird. Sure, it's an aesthetic thing. Totally not because they had Snipe on a stick.
I mostly blame.
Yeah.
All right. Anything to add on this? I think this might actually see less play now then.
I actually think it will. Losing RFP on the gun makes it a far less attractive option as a Ghost Fleet answer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you can still like semi RFP and stuff like the leader model and things like that. Like even though you can still kind of do that, I still think it's a little less of an attractive option for shaving off front lines. And then the Reload 2, it's kind of a side grade. It's not really an upgrade or a downgrade. Because in order to get the most out of Reload 2, you have to run it fairly low on souls. If you're running it fairly low on souls, then it's not doing its job protecting your army from spells. Or you could potentially even be forced into a situation where you have to Vortex something, and then you end up dropping Soulstorm because you had to Vortex. So I think it's a side grade. I don't think you're going to see it as often as people think you will, but it's still more than a serviceable battle engine.
Yeah. All right. I think that wraps up battle engines. Thanks for your input on battle engines, Spence.
I like to think that my worthwhile experience got passed on
Spence again performing and podcasting like he performs in life way too late and brings nothing to the table.
That's actually my sex life too. So
Okay.
Jeremy, they can't see your facial expressions.
Sorry. Mental math not working.
Are we gonna wrap up?
Yes.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Put it.
All right, everyone, say goodbye in the order in which you got here.
Bye, everybody.
Nope, you went backwards.
You didn't say which order. Okay,
That's correct, but you're wrong.
Are we doing alphabetical?
Goodbye.
There's no discernible reason the letters have to be in that order.
Goodbye.
Scott.
Goodbye.
There you go.
Spence, you didn't say goodbye.
I did too. I said it first.
Yeah, that's the wrong order. You gotta say it again.
It's the correct order. I did it first.
You gotta say. I feel like Max is trying to shoot me.
So what's our topic for today? We wanted to talk about battle engines, or did we want to talk about the game a year
Yeah,
in?
I was just thinking the C.I.D. release stuff.
Yeah, we want to talk about how Spence is late until he gets here, which will be roughly, 38 minutes. By the way, we're starting 25 minutes late.
As norm.
What are you eating?
Nuts.
Are they nice and salty?
Yeah.
Why are you-
nuts in my
Why
mouth.
are you... I ate before we started. That's why I ate. Oh my god. It's fucking... The light's on! The definition...
Recording is not started.
That's true. Did you enjoy your nuts?
I did enjoy
Both of
the
them.
salty nuts in my mouth.
Both of them that you just ate?
Yep.
So yeah, we can talk about the C.I.D. stuff.
All right. So Spence is headed over. Did I hear Max in the background?
Yeah, Max is gunsmithing right now, so there might be some loud noises. He said he's done hitting his gun with a hammer, so it'll be quieter now.
Oh, I was just hoping Max was going to join us on the podcast.
Scott misses you and wants to talk with the words. He has turned his
Well, that
flashlight
just-
on his gun.
That just made shit awkward.
He's holding his gun up under his face and using the light like the storytelling thing. Max, have you checked that gun to make sure it's not loaded? I mean, you might need a lower for that to matter, but
No. You can still make it fire.
Yeah, you can hit this hard enough for it back here. But considering I just put the barrel on it, yes.
Max, definition of unsafe gun use.
I just recently got done doing a little bit of gunsmithing myself.
Okay, so let me know if you think this is unsafe or not. He was smithing a weapon that he had not checked to see if it was loaded yet. And he didn't check to see if it was loaded until after he put the barrel on. Isn't that ridiculous?
Well, I would say if the firearm is disassembled, I would say it's relatively safe to inspect that firearm from any direction that the user sees fit.
Oh.
Jeremy, I had the weirdest damn thing happen to me.
But
Oh.
was it a
I
sex
was-
dream?
Let's not go with... Yeah, let's go somewhere else with this. Like, anywhere
No.
else.
No, like I was cleaning my 1911, and so I had put a little bit of graphite lubricant on the rails, right? So I was racking the slide a couple of times to get it in, like to make sure that it worked itself in. And I'll be damned if the freaking barrel bushing didn't snap. It just snapped, just broke.
What?
Like the bottom of the barrel bushing that retains the guide rod snapped. It just fucking broke. I emailed STI. They're sending me new replacements, but I was like, you've got to be fucking joking. What causes that? And the only thing I could think
Apparently
of, like I did a lot of research. And, what's that?
Apparently that crap you put on it.
Yeah, well, I don't think graphite lubricant causes that to snap. The only thing I could think of is the I don't know, maybe too many reps. I mean, I've been through 2 barrels in that gun, so
Maybe.
I mean, I can't tell you how many rounds that pistol's fired.
Yeah, I haven't done enough with 1911s. The only one I have is 22.
Okay, that's a crime, sir.
Why?
Jeremy has this weird like foot fetish thing with 22, and it's I don't know. How many guns do you have chambered in 22?
Me?
Yeah,
Uh,
like 8.
One.
No, okay.
One is my.
The ones that you shoot. So whoever owns those stolen guns.
I don't know, probably a dozen, 2
Yeah,
dozen.
that's too many 22s.
What? You know how many 22s we have?
Well, okay, Brandon, the problem with your statement is you said that that's too many and you were referring to firearms. There is no such thing.
It's definitely too many 22s.
You know, the 22 is the most common round available.
Yeah, because psychos like you exist. That's exactly why.
I'm just saying, should you need a gun that can shoot a very common piece of ammo?
So slingshots shoot most ammo too. Just saying.
But I'm not skilled with the slingshot.
That's true. You skilled with a sling?
Somewhat.
All right.
It's been a couple of years.
So what has come out of C.I.D. so far? Is it pretty much just battle engines?
Battle engines, and I think the Bane updates.
Did they actually
Yep.
do all the Bane updates?
They updated the rules for the models. They have not released the CID theme force yet.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, Bay Knight's points are different, and their rules have changed.
Yep. Set defense, wall of steel.
Bay Knights now, they lost Vengeance for set defense, wall of steel, and they went down to 15 points for a full unit. Did you guys see a very interesting change they made to Fiora 3?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So if you go to Fiora 3, it's the Conquering Flame. She's now on a 30mm base. Isn't that really strange to do that change in an errata?
Huh. That big of a
Yep.
model on a 30
I had to call
millimeter.
one of my players a cheater and throw him out of an event. Because he had her on a 50. That's ridiculous. I don't show with my Creel Warriors on 120mm bases, sir. That would be, like, impossible.
What was it, Carl with the C that had the Kane 2 on the 40?
Oh, Carl Simpson. Yeah, he
Yeah.
moved to, like, fucking Chicago or something.
Yeah. But his Kane 2 came
Yeah, I
on
almost
with a
forgot.
40.
Yeah, he bought him and he came with a 40, so he played him with a 40. And we're like, Jesus, that Kane is on a huge base. I'm pretty sure it was Kane 1 because he didn't have the decoration or anything. He was just on medium, so it was super noticeable.
Yeah.
You're like, Jesus Christ, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? So let's see. Tartarus went down a couple points. No, he's like 6 now, isn't he? Yeah, he's 6.
Yeah, he lost Curse. He
Lost
lost
Curse for
Curse,
Veteran
but
Leader
picked up
Bane.
Veteran Leader. Yep.
And Bane Warriors. Oh yeah, and they got their new mini feat of like just return D3 +1 guys. Yeah.
Yep.
Were Mechanithrals in there?
They kept fucking with them, but I don't know if they ever did anything. Let me check. Yeah, they're now 9 points. Def 12, Arm 12. Is that what they were before? But like that's what they were in Mark II, right? Yeah. So they got their defense back and stayed power 10. Brutes are power 14, 12, 14 with shield guard. Okay.
The ones I had still say version 1 on the card.
Yeah, we're version 1 of Mark III. You got a problem with that? Got a problem with that, Jeremy.
Okay.
Oh, Necrosurgeons changed.
Necrosurgeons, what they do?
They can now replace models in any Thrall unit instead of just Mechanithralls.
What?
Yeah.
You're kidding, right?
No, I'm not. I'm looking them up right now to find the exact wording. But yeah.
Yeah, friendly thrall. Ooh.
Oh, well, but... Okay, not undead unit, though. Just Thrall units.
Yeah.
Apparently, Necrosurgeons now can reconstruct any Thrall. Well, Banes aren't Thralls anymore.
Oh, they're not?
No, yeah, it's Bane Warriors. So,
Bile Thralls. They can do Bile Thralls, too.
Carrion Thralls.
Yep. They can do Bile Thralls, Carrion Thralls, and Mechanithralls.
But they're not grunts, so it would matter if it's not grunts.
Soul Hunters.
They're a Thrall unit.
Yep.
Small-based grunt.
Oh,
So it has to be a small-based grunt, so it has to be non-brute Thrall. Yeah.
Birds, Mechanic Thralls, or Bile Thralls. Nothing else.
Although the Bile Thralls is kind of cool.
Except for they remove himself from life. You can remake that guy.
Well, I mean, if they get shot on the way up, make more guys.
Which, if you're gonna play Crix or Signar,
Oh look, Black Plains Ghost Raiders are totally thralls. Nope. Fuck that. All they really needed to do, I think, is make them able to actually heal people again, and that would have been fine. Alright. So we're going to talk about C.I.D. stuff, specifically about the process, or...
no, just stuff that's been released.
Okay. Are we going to talk about
I
like,
think
how it's gone from where it started at to what it was like on C.I.D., and then talk about how it finished? Or are we going to talk about how C.I.D. is ruining the game, or...
And then whether or not you're more likely to play with a battle engine now. Or...
Okay. I well, we can talk about that later. So at some point, Spence is going to show up and disrupt everything, just FYI.
So
Is that mic good?
Yes.
Good to go. Is it DTF?
It is.
Down to function?
Yes. Sure.
Do you have to point it at us while you use the wrench on it? Yes.
Well, you see, you
At
have
least
to
that
make
way I won't know if something goes
you have to
wrong.
make sure it'll chamber first.
Yeah, you gotta make sure the gun will chamber while you're using the wrench.
Then you got to get the ball hammer out to make sure that it seeds all the way in there.
Why are Soul Hunters a thrall unit? I guess they're undead, but...
They've always been, haven't they?
So thralls are non-bane, non-ghost undead.
Except for Bane.
pretty
Thralls.
much.
They're basically steampunk undead are thralls. I don't know why they went with the number for the base. They could just in like S through L or huge, SMLH instead of. I'm sure it saves on printing. I guess they're never going to print these unless you. Well, no, they do custom order printing. I don't know because all the references
to have it in text at the bottom of the card on the back. At least in Mark II they did.
Maybe in Mark II they did. They definitely changed the formatting. The reason I say that, though, is because all references in the game are to small, medium, large base. Like, Necrosurgeons, for example, say small-based, Thrall Grunt. Well, newer players might not realize that smalls are 30mm. They might not make that connection immediately, so I just don't know why one is done in millimeters and one is done in base size. It's just odd.
Maybe they're going to change it to a new base size.
Maybe.
Capitalize on that market of aftermarket bases.
Mole people. It's when the mole people come out.
All right.
I got nothing. I mean, yeah.
Maybe we should just let him go to Muse. We're just going to talk about mole people the whole time.
So we'll give him Scott, and then we'll take Lance.
Lance doesn't podcast anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. Lance is adorable, but...
And then we'll just talk about guns and conservative values and
because if we traded Scott for Nigel, it would only last like a week because we'd stab Nigel to death halfway through the first episode.
Nigel, are you going to be there for like 3 hours? You are?
Yeah.
Cool.
Roughly 3.5. Well, I'll see you in a little bit. I mean, have a good night. Don't call the police. And John would just duck the podcast every week, so there's no point in doing that. All
They're
right,
good, Crumpton?
I guess yeah. Maybe if Adam would actually podcast. What are you doing?
You guys are the worst. The worst.
Why are
What?
we the worst?
The ones that we like aren't podcasting anymore?
Yeah, I mean, is it even a podcast anymore? I don't know. We've been phoning it in the last couple weeks anyway.
Actually, no, we didn't phone it in last time.
I know, that's the point.
All right.
I don't know. The problem is we're doing it in the morning now, so I'm like not even awake yet. I don't wake up till like 4 p.m.
With some salty nuts in your mouth? Do it?
Nah. Okay. That usually puts me to sleep.
But not always.
Not always.
Usually it's the chloroform.
Yeah. That 9 minutes of straight chloroform that puts me to sleep.
I mean, you call it chloroform. I call it the Jeremy Gregg charm.
Jeremy Gregg, why do you chloroform people, apparently?
Are they hookers?
The correct
As in they're
question
not
is-
people.
As in,
that was my
like,
question.
oh my god.
What? Scott, do you think hookers are people?
Yes, hookers are people.
But they have no
Maybe
souls.
Maybe people that made some alternate life or maybe some bad life choices, but they are still
So you're
people.
saying that
Still
a
human beings.
ginger hooker has a soul. I'm just confirming. Scott.
Yes, I am saying that they have a soul.
Why do you refuse to listen to reason?
What about the... Okay, Scott, what about the Irish?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
No,
hey,
you just
wait a
said
minute.
ginger.
Just full on Irish.
Just full-on Irish.
Just full on Irish. Do they have a soul?
Yes, because this determines whether or not you're going to stay on this podcast.
Oh God, no, they don't have a soul. I draw the line. Like
Nice.
gingers and hookers, like that's different. But Irish, like no, like
Correct answer. Correct answer.
So, Jeremy, you going to WTC with me?
No.
Oh, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, apparently the fundraiser didn't go as well as planned.
Did they even do a fundraiser this year?
I think so.
I'm unaware of any fundraiser that's happened for WTC.
Oh, well, for the stream equipment. Apparently they're only going to be able to take just the equipment and one guy to set it up.
Eventually, if you do it every year, it's going to that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
People aren't going to support it. You know?
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to need to be recouped or something like that.
And I know, I think Steamforge is going to be doing all the Guild Ball stuff.
my line went dead. You guys still with me?
Yep.
All right.
I'm not very excited about C.I.D. right now. Trying to think what I want to talk about other than I hate people.
We don't really have to talk about C.I.D. We're just talking about the crap that has gone through C.I.D.
I know.